If it's not clear by now, I sold all of my Sony cameras a few months ago. This includes the Sony FX3, the Sony A7C, and whatever lenses I had. I sold them because I wanted to go back to Blackmagic. I just loved my time with the Pocket 4K when I had it, and I was convinced that I wouldn't be taking on any more run and gun gigs. One thing led to another, and I ended up with a red Komodo because I'm stupid, but we can get into that another time. I also ended up shooting a very run and gun unconventional wedding with the Komodo, so I guess that run and gun statement didn't last long either. Of course, all of this is beside the point. Basically, I felt the need for a smaller everyday camera, something I could conveniently use for YouTube as well, and because I'm hoping to get more into EF and RF lenses for the Komodo, naturally I set my sights on Canon's offerings. Now, I was completely happy with Sony's offerings, so much so that Canon's R5 and R6 never seemed all that appealing to me. The overheating complaints were one thing, but the 30-minute recording time limit was always ultimately the deal breaker. Coming from the FX3 and A7C, I was surprised at how important not having that 30-minute time limit was to me. When the R7 and R10 were announced, my brain immediately began trying to justify purchasing one. I held off for as long as I could, but eventually caved. So now, a month later, and after a lot of personal shoots, I feel like I have a better understanding of how this camera suits me. I'll be organizing the points into the following sections. Okay, so I am a full-time office worker at a university now. I made a concerted effort to step away from the videography world and focus on building a career in post-secondary education. The city I live in, however, has made an equally valiant effort to raise its cost of living to incredible heights. Pair that with some old clients saying nice things to me, and I'm back to freelancing a bit on the side. In addition, I'm hoping to grow this YouTube channel into a proper side hustle in the next few years. In order to do that, I'd like to be shooting on something that is relevant to viewers and convenient to work with. And the one constant for me and cameras is I want to continue to capture video of my most mundane and monumental moments. One thing to note is that I don't really ever take photos now. This of course might change as I spend more time with the R7, but I'm definitely not part of the wildlife photography demographic which this camera seems to be targeting. On the freelancing front, the EOS R7 currently is not in my kit since I have my red Komodo. And when it's not those types of projects, I'm finding that I'm doing a lot of post-production for freelance, so investing more into my camera kit is not as high of a priority. Let's move on to the cons. The build quality overall is good, but listen to this. I don't think I need to elaborate on that. I'm just hoping it's my copy, but I don't know. Also, I'm not jacked, but my ego is saying that I probably at least have average grip strength. Just little context there. I'm not like trying to crush it or anything. It's just lightly squeezing the grip. 2. The rolling shutter on the R7 is A7C-esque, but to be honest, I'm just listing it as a con because it objectively can be better. For me, I really don't care if my YouTube videos or personal shots have rolling shutter. I also don't really notice it when I'm editing the footage. 3. So there are basically two flavors of 4K on this camera. One is high quality, the other is low. If you want to shoot 4K 60 in the higher quality, you'll have a huge crop. If you want no crop, you have to use the lower quality. Again, objective con or compromise, but for me, I don't really care. I subjectively think the lower quality 4K 60 is still very usable. 4. People hate micro HDMI because it's not a reliable connection. I agree. But I don't see myself using an external monitor with this camera unless it's for a YouTube talking head. So again, doesn't piss me off quite as much. 5. It's a crop sensor camera, so it's definitely not an A7S III or FX3 when it comes to low light, probably not even as good as the A7C. Have I found it to be an issue though? Not yet, but then again, I'm very tolerant of digital noise unless it's client work. The viewfinder is absolute trash, and I really can't see anything in it. Tons of lag and ghosting in the time that I've had it, so yeah. But to be fair, this could be user error and I'm missing something in the settings, but for now, I am exclusively using the LCD screen. 7. You can't use zebras and focus peaking at the same time, which is extremely annoying when I want to use manual glass, such as my Canon FD lens. 8. Lens selection. The lens selection for the new RFS line is obviously bare. You can use some of the cheaper RF primes though, or go for one of their zooms, and I'm sure you'd have a good time. There's also an extensive list of EF lenses out there. For example, since I already have the Sigma 18-35 and an EF to RF adapter, I'm just going to be using that in addition to the kit lens for now. It makes for a very front heavy and long setup though, which isn't ideal for a walk around setup. I think I'm going to be waiting for the RFS line to mature a bit more instead of buying RF lenses. Moving on. Pros. The first pro is the availability of 4K 24p C-Log 3 in 10-bit color. I really don't need much else for my use case. I just need a solid 4K 24 with good colors, and with the R7, I feel like I'm getting that. C-Lux 3 is new to me though, so I'm still learning what the best way to expose it is, and I'm finally really trying to step up my color grading skill set, which is revealing to me just how little I actually know about color grading. Despite all that, I'm very happy with the images I'm getting out of this camera. 2. If I ignore the symphony of creaking and squeaking that the body produces, I'm actually very happy with how the camera feels when shooting. The first time I held the camera, I thought the grip felt fantastic, and the first time my friend Bryce held the camera, he also immediately commented on the grip. It's not the most substantial or solid feeling grip and body, but the shape makes it nice to work with, if that makes sense. There are also little things like the placement of the mic jack and the door, which actually allows you to fully utilize the articulating LCD screen. If memory serves me correct, this was actually not the case with the Sony FX3, whose port doors blocked the screen from fully articulating. The articulating touchscreen is nice and works well, and I like having 2 SD card slots which can both record video at the same time. I can't remember which cameras, but there are a few out there that only allow simultaneous recording to 2 cards for photos, not videos. So I consider this a plus for the R7. The fact that it has some weather resistance offers peace of mind when I'm out and about. It's also extremely lightweight, which I am thankful for. Paired with the kit lens, I could carry this all day, no problem. Of course, being lightweight means the IBIS needs to be good. From all of my tests, the IBIS actually feels very similar to the Panasonic G85's IBIS, which is one of my first cameras and had perhaps my favorite IBIS I've ever used. I need to try it with more lenses, however, because I noticed a significant drop-off in stability and performance when using it with my Sigma 18-35 and Canon FD 28mm. With the kit lens though, it's really good. Static shots are okay. The camera just feels like it's floating rather than being fully locked off. It still looks great, but it's different. Panning and tilting feels pretty natural in the time that I've used it, haven't noticed anything there. Of course, as is the case with all IBIS, you still need to be mindful when walking, otherwise there'll be tons of warping and jumps. But overall, very acceptable amounts of warping and skittish movements with the R7's IBIS. The internet hype around this camera was largely centered on the autofocus system that apparently is the same one as the one found in the R3. I haven't used the R3, so I can't compare, but to be honest, I found the autofocus to be a bit sluggish with the kit lens. Same thing with the Sigma 18-35. Those 2 lenses, however, are probably horrible choices when testing out a camera's autofocus, so I've left autofocus in the pros section. Yes, it felt a bit sluggish, but still very stable and overall pretty reliable. Again, once more RFS lenses come out, then I think I'll be really able to test this. One more pro I wanted to put in is actually the quick boot up time and how quickly you can begin recording. Who is this camera for? To sum it up, I think this camera is perfect for beginner or intermediate videographers, and of course that applies to content creators as well. I think it's a noticeable step down from the A7S III and FX3 in terms of codec options, rolling shutter, build quality, low light performance, professional audio options, etc. But I think those are things that actually only mean much more when you hit a certain threshold of project scope and complexity. When you're at the beginner or intermediate level, those things are more like nice to haves rather than necessities. Of course, if you have the budget, by all means, go for the best options available to you. Just know that it will literally cost more in terms of overall accessories and blah blah, but also time, since maximizing many of those features will involve a steep learning curve. Back to the R7 though. I think in its price range, the R7 is actually one of the best cameras for video content, if not the best. I'm stressing that if though, since I don't have first-hand experience with all the cameras in this range and haven't been keeping up too closely with newer ones hitting the market. I can say though that Canon has finally made a compelling package for people who are looking to marry convenience with image quality. It has good autofocus, good IBIS, good ergonomics, a touchscreen 10-bit color, 4K 24, 4K 60, etc. And perhaps the best thing is that each of those options is relatively simplistic and straightforward. And for those who might be wondering, yes, I think this is a better option than the Sony A7C. When am I selling the R7? This is somewhat in jest, but I think it's a question worth asking. Right now, it's just a really solid tool that contributes to my goal, which is unfortunately adhering to algorithms and current gear, in addition to sharing lenses with my main camera. So the answer to that question is probably much sooner than I need to. Honestly, I could have stuck with the A7C for at least another 2 years. The FX3 probably another 5 or 6, if not longer. But at the end of the day, I wanted to lock in on a camera that I really enjoy using beyond a technical level, and that landed me in the EF and RF mount. And I'd rather just consolidate everything into one lens system moving forward. So be forewarned, I'll probably end up going through many camera bodies moving forward, all of which I'm sure can be good tools for anybody watching. I just feel the need to state this because I hope I don't contribute too much to this feeling that you always need the latest and greatest. What I hope to contribute viewed instead is a more measured approach to cameras and just really seeing them as tools that you evaluate in the context of your own needs and wants. And there's always somebody looking for information for that newest camera, so that's kind of the lens with which I'm trying to approach these reviews and new gear. Anyways, that's it for the video. I might do a more in-depth review later, or one that's more geared towards freelancing with the R7, so if you're interested, let me know and subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you for your time. Hope you're well. Please stay healthy and have a wonderful day. Bye.